Hello and welcome to video number 24 in the sequence. This one is again X's and O's and the Stream Deck. I'm going to look at the cameras again. The previous video I did some work on how the cameras work. Didn't like how one or two of the buttons work, so I've done some work writing scripts and doing some research and some testing to get these cameras to be more refined, and I'm quite happy with how the layout works now. So this video I'm not going to go into massive details on how all the different variables work. If you want to see that, you really need to see the previous video. That'll make much more sense if you watch that before you watch this one. But let me try and explain the problem that I had and how I've resolved it. So let's get my flight simulator up, and I'll bring up my Stream Deck so you can see what I'm looking at. And this is my profile that I use for demonstrating the C172. And it's this button here. What it's designed to do is to switch the profile on here so all the buttons become buttons relevant for the primary flight display, and also give me a close-up view so I focus in on the primary flight display. And I did it originally with a multi-action button, which is a standard Stream Deck button, which I can allocate various things to. So it does two things, this one. It switches the profile to the primary flight display profile. That's the layout of buttons on the Stream Deck. And it again uses a standard hotkey, which is again a standard Stream Deck command. And it emulates me pressing the keyboard. It emulates me pressing Control 1. And that turns out to be quite vulnerable. Firstly, it depends on your keyboard profile in Microsoft Flight Simulator, because you could reallocate that to something else and you'd lose that function. But also it only works when the Microsoft Flight Simulator has been clicked on. It actually has the what's called the input focus, and that's not always the case. I use a second monitor, and sometimes I've clicked in on a flight plan, or I'm looking up a frequency somewhere, and I may not be clicked into here. So let me show you it working and not working. Firstly, I've got the input focus. I've clicked on the Microsoft Flight Simulator. If I press the button on my Stream Deck, that should work quite happily. That brings us in and shows us the close-up view. And on the Stream Deck, if I bring my Stream Deck up again, you'll see that the profile has changed. So that's okay, and it'll go back again quite happily. But if I've got my input focus somewhere else, so if I bring up my Stream Deck and click on that, it could be anything that I've clicked on. If I press that button now, what will happen is it will change the profile, but it won't focus in. It won't see the keyboard press, which is annoying. Okay, so there's the profile change, but this hasn't happened. We haven't gone anywhere. So what I've done is I've created a new button now, and again it's a multi-action. It does two actions. The first one is now not the hotkey event. It is a Lorby X's and O's event, and it's running a script that I've written called the camera PFD close-up view, and that has to be a K event. It runs it as if it's a key event, as if you pressed a key, and it has to do it in this order. It runs the script first and then changes the profile. Okay, so that seems to be most important. So what does this script look like? Well, let's explain some of the background behind it, and a quick recap of how the variables work, and then I'll show you how the script works. So the first variable in the cameras is this one called camera state, and we can read that variable, and this is the format that we read it in. If you want to write to it, you put an output sign here, which is a greater than sign that says write to it, but we're going to read it, and it switches between the four main modes. If the value of that variable is 2, we're looking at the cockpit. If we change it to 3, we're going on to the external view. If its value is 4, it's the drone, and if it's 5, it's the cameras that are fixed to the plane. So we can change the main view that we want to look at. But once we're in one of these main views, there are lots of sub-views and sub-sub-views that we can go with. So the first one is using this variable. Again, we can read it and write to it, and it's the camera view type and index. And if the index is 0, changing the value changes us to the pilot view, the instrument view, and the quick view, but they're all within the cockpit view. Okay, so these are various different views around the cockpit. If we use that with an index 1 and we're in the pilot view, so the pilot view when the index was 0 and we set it to 1, we've got these 4 views here that we can select by changing the value with index set to 1. We can have the pilot seat, the landing view, which is a slightly raised pilot seat so we can see over the propeller, a close-up view, which you can define a little bit, you can decide what the close-up view looks like, and the co-pilot seat. So we can change the sub-view. Interesting, there's no value for, but there you are. That's they're the views that we can use with that. Or if we set the index 0 and use 2, we're looking at the instrument view, and then change the index to 1, we can change which actual instrument we want to look at, and there are 5 different views. Well, certainly on the C172 there are 5 views that we can look at. And just for completeness, the last one, again, index 0 set to 3 takes us to quick view, index 1 lets us select up to 8, one of the 8 different cameras that are in that view. So that's what we want to do. What I really want to do is I want to change to a specific view. I want to change from the pilot view pilot seat, that's index 0 number 1, index 1 number 1, that gives us the normal pilot view. I want to change that to the instrument view, which is number 2, and the primary flight display, the PFD, is 0. So I need a script that takes me from there to there. And it's relatively simple. This is what the script looks like. It says when it set the index to 1 and set it to 0. So that is pre-selecting that we're going to look at the primary flight display. Then send a 2 with the index of 0 to send it to the instrument view. In theory, it shouldn't matter which way around we do it. It should be able to go, I want to see an instrument, which instrument do I want to see? But I've tried it a couple of times and this seems to be much more reliable. Going this way, pre-select the view and then change it to instrument view seems to work much better. So let's have a look at where I did that. So on the Stream Deck, that's where I need to place that. And I write that script in axes and O's. So let's bring axes and O's in. And in the scripting here, let's just tidy the windows. I've created a folder for camera views, and I've got this one here called the PFD close-up. And there's the script, exactly as I've got on the PowerPoint. Send a 0, send a 2, and it will send both events. And to get that into here, so we create an event button, just drag it there. And what I do here is I go insert sim event, find it in my list here, camera, and select it, right hand click over here, paste it in, control V or something like that to paste it in. Don't forget submit at the end of it. So that's how you put the script in. The script to get back out again, returning to the pilot view, and I'll show you the button that's on in a moment, but we'll kind of reverse the process. I showed in the previous video that it's pretty unreliable. You do need to change the instrument you're looking at before you switch back, and it seems to be that if I select view 4, index 1 view 4, and then switch back to the pilot view, that seems to work quite happily. So it gets me back into pilot view and I can then change the subview from there. But that's the script. So I've got a script called return to cockpit. So let's have a look at that. Here's my back to cockpit. Actually it's version 2 because I was fiddling around, but it's exactly as I said. 4 to select instrument number 4 or view 4, and then change it back into the pilot's view, and that seems to work quite happily. So let's try and see that in action. So if I go back into my flight simulator and I'll bring up my Stream Deck. So the first one is I'm going to click on this one here, which is the one with the script on it, and that should change the view. Just need to because I'm doing some editing, it's worth going offline and online again, and that should pick up all the buttons. Okay, so let's try that again. So primary flight display, and that's taken me straight there. And if I press on this one here, the cockpit view here, that should again switch the profile back and switch the view back, and that seems to work pretty reliably. I can go between the two quite happily. Okay, so that's the first thing that I've tidied up. The second thing I tidied up with this button here, I created a panel which allowed me to select all the different views that are available. There's the major views, the cockpit view, the external view, the drone view, the fixed camera view, and I can switch between all the various fixed cameras. But this one here was causing me some problems. I've got this set as a toggle, as you saw, that it only one button turns on at a time, and I did that in the previous video. And again, when I'm in the cockpit view, I can go between the pilot view, the instrument view, the quick view. So that all seemed to work quite happily. But I also wanted to have this view here, the various sub-views of the pilot view or the sub-views of the instrument views, set as a toggle so I could see which one I was working on. And initially that's very relatively simple to do. So if we look at the contents of this pilot view here, this is pilot view is number 1, or the landing view is number 2. So we send a value to it, and then we read that value back and see if it's a 2. And so if I send a 2 and it sees a 2, it should switch that on and switch that off, and it does that quite happily. The problem was that these views, the instrument view and the quick view, also use the same variable, the camera view type and index. And so if that was set to number 2, this would come on as well, and this one would come on as well. So all the various views would come on at the same time. So I wanted to write a script that would make sure that only that pilot view area got turned on when I was in pilot view, or only the instrument view would turn on. So this is what it looks like. So just to review the problem, if I use that toggle switch to indicate which view I was in, all the buttons with the same value would light up. So you'd have a light on the pilot view, and the quick view and the instrument view would all come up active. And that's because they're all using this to select that subview. So I wrote a script, and the script works like this. If we're in the pilot view, we check that we are in the pilot view. We check index 0 and look to see if it's number 1. And if we are in the pilot view, we send to that button we read the index 1. We find out which of the subviews of the pilot view we are and send that to me. If we're not in that, send me a 10. 10 seems a weird number to send, but it's a number that none of the buttons will be programmed to respond to. So it could just send me a rubbish number. And I've chosen 10 because if we do the same in the quick view, there are up to 9 views. So we choose number 10, which means we're just sending a number that's out of range, so it can't see it. So let's go through that again. This one here checks that we are in pilot view for the pilot view toggles. Those are these ones here. So each of these ones here has the script on here which says check that it's number 1. Doesn't matter which one I'm in. It's the same script in every single button here along this view here. Check that we're in number 1. If we are, tell me which one of these to light up. And so it will find out whether it's a 1 or a 2 or a 3 and light up the switch. This one's responding to number 1. It's looking for a 1. This one's looking for a 2. This one's looking for a 3. This one's looking for a 4. When I'm in the instrument view, I want to check this time to see if index 0 is set to 2. If it is, tell me which one to light up. If not, send me a 10 and nothing lights up. And then the last one is on the quick view again, so check that I'm in quick view, and if I am, tell me which quick view to light up. If not, send me this sort of blank dummy figure, this 10. So here's the script, just exactly there, copied in. Now this time I tried running it by you can't read a key event, you can't send a K. So when you're reading a variable, you can either read a direct variable or you can use a script to read a variable. So I have to write the script in the script editor and then copy and paste it into here, but that's exactly what I would have written in a script. That's it, checking the value, and here it is telling me what to send, whether to send a value or to send a dummy value. Don't forget, when you put it in, click submit. Okay, so that's how this works here, and let me show you that in action. So if I bring up my flight simulator and I bring up my Stream Deck, I should be able to go between the various views. So I should be able to go into instrument view. So we're in cockpit. We're not changing that variable at all, the camera state variable. It's all just the one with the index. So I'm in instrument view, and if I go and look at the panel view, you see that's lit up as panel. I'm looking at the main panel. If I go to pedestal view, there's the pedestal, and it's lit up pedestal. The same value is being used here throughout. So if I click on, let's have a look at this one here, that's value 2, and the MFD is, sorry, pedestal is 4, Copilot 5, that's the overview 5. If I clicked on Copilot previously, that would light up and that would light up and the 5 here would light up, but it doesn't happen because the script is checking this number first. So let's go to quick view, number 5, and these aren't lighting up. That's all quite happy. So that's view number 5, there's view number 6. So I can change between these pretty happily. I can flick around everywhere, and the correct button's lighting up each time. Okay, so I've got all the different views, the 4 views there. For pilot view, go to instrument view, I've got primary flight display, main flight display, the panel, pedestal, and this overview. Quick view, that's all going around. Okay, so I can see every one of my quick views. There are 1 to 9 of those. External view, no need to do any work on this. There is no conflict at all anywhere. If I click the reset button, that automatically sends me view number 0. If I click choose, I can then flick around and choose the various different views that are available to me. Click on reset and I'm back on the rear view, which is what most people like. The drone view does nothing. That relies totally on my, I've actually got it mapped to my joystick, so I can look around with that. So that's working fine. I can drive that around. So I've actually got those views set on my joystick. I don't forget I use a camera head tracker, so I don't really need to use that very much. And then there's this fixed view, the fixed view cameras, and there are various views that we can flick around there. And again, no need to do any work on that. The buttons is just toggles. So it says send a 1 and check whether I've got a 1. If it sees any other number, it doesn't light up, so I press that one there. It's sent a 1. It's found that it was 1. It's read that value there quite happily, and it says, yeah, that's switch on. Or send me number 2. That one there would be send a 2, and then check whether it's a 2. So those are pretty simple to do. This button here, that will take me back to my profile for the C172, but I need to remember to go into the various views, the pilot view, get that ready, and then I can press this button here, the C172, which returns me to my standard profile. Okay, I hope that all makes sense, but watch it again through if you need to, and don't forget you can ask comments. I will answer your comments if you put them in, if you need some extra information. Okay, not quite sure what the next video is going to be. I've got 2 different ideas, but I'll reveal that later. So I'll see you in the next video.